Welcome to episode 19 of the Queen's Lariat podcast. I'm your host, AJ, and in today's episode, I'm going to discuss one of my favorite WWE factions of all time, Damage Control. Now, this is going to be a two-part episode. So today, I bring you part one, the rise and fall of Damage Control. But before that, please like, share, and subscribe here on YouTube, and like, share, and follow on X. Also, I just set up a TikTok account, so please go over there, like, share, and follow at Queen's Lariat. Okay, so Damage Control debuted at SummerSlam 2022, confronting Bianca Belair and Becky Lynch after the Raw Women's Championship match. Bayley, returning from a year-long injury, debuted her new faction of Dakota Kai, who was released from NXT a couple of months prior but resigned, and Io Shirai, who recently signed a new deal and got a name change, both making their main roster debuts. The group would go on to feud with the likes of Bianca Belair, Becky Lynch, and Asuka and Alexa Bliss. On May 12th of 2023, Dakota Kai would sustain a torn ACL in a tag match against Liv Morgan and Raquel. This was the beginning of a shift within Damage Control. Following the injury to Dakota, we started seeing cracks within Damage Control, with Io Sky feeling like Bayley was taking all of the opportunities away from her and Dakota in the group. Eventually, Io would earn a title opportunity against Bianca Belair for the Raw Women's Championship at Backlash in Puerto Rico, where she would fall short but earn the respect and adoration of WWE fans. At Money in the Bank that year, Io Sky would capture the briefcase and, with the help of Bayley, would go on to successfully cash in on Bianca at SummerSlam. A little side note, I was there when Io cashed in and the atmosphere was crazy. Everybody was going wild for that. But anyways, after celebrating with Dakota, tensions began to arise again in Damage Control, with Io feeling like Bayley was not a good leader after Bayley cost Io a couple of wins and that crown jewel of that year. During her match with Bianca Belair for Io's WWE Women's Championship, Io would tell Bayley before the match not to interfere. Io would go on to win that match with the help of a returning Kairi Sane, who had been in Stardom for the last 2 years after being taken out by Bayley and returning to Japan. On the following episode of SmackDown, Io and Dakota would go on to explain to a confused Bayley that they brought Kairi in to help Damage Control, and they felt like they wanted to take a load off of Bayley's shoulder as the leader of Damage Control. After the group being confronted by Bianca, Charlotte, and Asuka, a 6-woman tag match was set up, with Asuka eventually turning on Charlotte and Bianca and joining Damage Control. Okay, so that was my little retrospect of the beginnings of Damage Control and basically Asuka and Kairi joining Damage Control. In part 2, I will go through the whole them turning on Bayley saga. But I'm going to give a little bit of opinions on the story this far. I felt like when Bayley debuted Damage Control in kayfabe, and in her mind, she wanted to help Io and Dakota become, top stars. But eventually, as the leader, I feel like she started using them as cannon fodder to try and get the women's championship and to win her feud with Bianca. Dakota and Io eventually realized this, and they started being fed up with Bayley, and they wanted opportunities of their own so they could grow. And I just feel like that was the start of the dissension in Damage Control and their disenchantment with Bayley as the leader. But that's just some of my opinions about the beginning of Damage Control, which, like I said, is one of my favorite groups. They have a ton of accomplishments. I think this was a breath of fresh air where we haven't seen like an all-women stable in several years in WWE. And I think Bayley was the perfect person to lead this stable. But anyways, that's going to do it for our episode. Like I said, we're going to do a part 2 to this story. But remember to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube. Like, share, and follow on X. And also like, share, and follow on TikTok at Queens Lariat. I'm out.